Welcome to Nightmare Fuel Stories. The neighbor. I've always been a light sleeper. It's both a blessing and a curse. The slightest noise can jolt me awake, a car door slamming on the street below, the hum of the refrigerator kicking on, or the soft footsteps of the man who lives in apartment 4B. I know his routine by now. Every night at precisely 3:17 a.m., he leaves his apartment. I hear his door open and close with practiced quietness, the kind of careful movement that suggests he doesn't want to be heard. His footsteps move down the hallway past my door toward the stairwell, never the elevator. The elevator chimes and chimes draw attention. The first time I noticed this pattern was 3 months ago, shortly after I moved into Blackwood Apartments. I'd been having trouble adjusting to the ambient sounds of the building, the pipes groaning, the old heating system clicking on and off, the distant muffled voices of neighbors living their lives behind closed doors. So when I heard those deliberate footsteps in the dead of night, they stood out. For the first week, I thought nothing of it. Maybe he worked an early morning shift somewhere. Maybe he had insomnia and took walks to clear his head. There are plenty of reasonable explanations for a person to be awake and moving at 3:17 a.m., but then I started noticing other things. The timing, for one, always 3:17 a.m. Not 3:15, not 3:20, always exactly 3:17, as if he were responding to an alarm, and he always returned exactly 43 minutes later at 4 a.m. What kind of errand takes precisely 43 minutes to complete every single night? Then there was the fact that I never saw him during daylight hours. Not in the hallways, not checking his mail in the lobby, not taking out trash. The apartment building has 32 units spread across 4 floors, so it's not unusual to rarely encounter certain neighbors. But most people eventually cross paths, not with 4B. I only caught a glimpse of him once, about a month after I moved in. I was coming home late from a dinner with friends, maybe around midnight. As I was unlocking my door, I heard his open, just a crack. In the dim hallway lighting, I could make out a sliver of a face, pale, gaunt, with one eye visible, watching me. When I nodded in greeting, the door immediately closed, no response. After 2 months of this routine, his nightly excursions at 3:17 a.m., his conspicuous absence during daylight, his apparent aversion to neighborly interaction, my curiosity got the better of me. I decided to introduce myself properly. I baked cookies. Nothing fancy, just chocolate chip from a pre-made dough roll, but it gave me a pretext to knock on his door one evening around 7 p.m. I waited, cookies in hand, listening for movement inside. Nothing. I knocked again, louder this time. "Hello, I'm your neighbor from 4A, just wanted to introduce myself." Silence, but then a slight creak of floorboards. Someone was definitely home, just choosing not to answer. I left the cookies in a container by his door with a note introducing myself as Emily from 4A. When I checked the next day, the container was still there, untouched. That's when I decided to ask the building manager about him. Mrs. Winters has been managing Blackwood Apartments for over 20 years. She's a stern woman in her 60s with silver hair always pulled into a tight bun, but she has a soft spot for tenants who help her with small tasks. I'd been bringing her mail up from the lobby when I saw it on the ground floor, so she was generally friendly with me. "Mrs. Winters, I was wondering if you could tell me anything about my neighbor in 4B. I've been trying to introduce myself, but he seems to keep to himself." Something flickered across her face, concern, unease. It was gone quickly, replaced by her usual professional expression. "Mr. Reed is a private person," she said. "Been here longer than most tenants, pays his rent on time, never causes problems. Some people just prefer their solitude, dear." "Mr. Reed," I repeated, finally having a name to attach to the mysterious footsteps. "Has he always kept such unusual hours? I sometimes hear him going out very early in the morning." Mrs. Winters paused, her hand tightening slightly on the doorframe. "I wouldn't know about his comings and goings. As long as tenants aren't disturbing others, their schedules are their own business." There was a finality in her tone that discouraged further questions, but as I turned to leave, she added something that struck me as odd. "Emily," she said, her voice lower now, "Mr. Reed values his privacy. It's best to respect that." It wasn't what she said, but how she said it, like a warning. That night I lay awake in bed, waiting. My bedroom wall shared a boundary with Mr. Reed's apartment, though I rarely heard sounds through it. At exactly 3:17 a.m., I heard his door open and close, followed by the now familiar footsteps moving down the hallway. On impulse, I got out of bed and moved to my door, pressing my eye to the peephole just in time to catch a glimpse of him passing. In the dim emergency lighting of the hallway, I could make out a tall, thin figure in what appeared to be a dark coat. His movements were fluid, almost gliding, and though I couldn't see his face clearly, something about his posture seemed unnatural, too straight, too controlled. Before I could process what I was seeing, he disappeared from view toward the stairwell. I stood frozen at my door, heart pounding inexplicably. There was nothing overtly threatening about a man walking down a hallway, yet something about the sight of him had sent a chill through me. I returned to bed, but sleep eluded me. At exactly 4 a.m. I heard him return, the same quiet, deliberate footsteps passing my door, the same soft click of his apartment door closing. The next day I found myself obsessing over Mr. Reed and his nightly routine. What was he doing? Where was he going? The rational part of my brain told me it was none of my business, that plenty of people have unusual schedules or habits. But another part, the part that noticed the mathematical precision of his timing, the part that caught the warning in Mrs. Winter's voice, wouldn't let it go. I decided to look him up online. Daniel Reed Blackwood Apartments yielded nothing useful. I tried various combinations, adding our city name, searching social media platforms. No results that matched what little I knew of him. It was as if Mr. Reed existed solely within the confines of apartment 4B, materializing only for his nightly excursions. That evening, I ran into another neighbor, Mrs. Chen from 4C, while collecting my mail. She was a friendly woman in her 70s who had lived in the building for decades. If anyone knew about the mysterious Mr. Reed, it would be her. "Oh, 4B, she said when I casually brought him up. "Very quiet neighbor." "Never any trouble? Have you ever spoken with him?" I asked. "I've been trying to introduce myself, but our schedules don't seem to align." Mrs. Chen's smile faltered slightly. "Not really, dear. I think he works nights. I sometimes hear him in the hallway very early in the morning." "At 3:17, I asked before I could stop myself. Her eyes widened slightly. "You've noticed the time too?" "Yes, always the same time." "Clockwork, that man. Do you know where he goes?" Mrs. Chen glanced around the lobby as if checking whether we were alone. "No," she said, lowering her voice. "But about a year ago, I was up with terrible heartburn and decided to look out my peephole when I heard him pass. Curiosity, you know, I saw him walking toward the stairs and..." She trailed off. "And," I prompted. "Well, it sounds silly now, but I could have sworn he was wet. His clothes, his hair dripping, leaving a trail of water on the carpet. But when I checked the hallway the next morning, it was completely dry. No water stains, nothing." She laughed nervously. "Old eyes playing tricks, I suppose." I felt that chill again, the same one I'd experienced watching him through my peephole. "Did you ever mention it to anyone, to Mrs. Winters?" Mrs. Chen's expression turned serious. "I did, actually. She told me not to worry about Mr. Reed, that he's been a model tenant for many years, but..." She leaned closer. "She also said it would be best if I didn't watch for him anymore. Something about respecting boundaries." The same warning, first to Mrs. Chen, then to me. That night, I didn't just wait to hear Mr. Reed leave. I decided to follow him. I set my alarm for 3:10 a.m., giving me time to dress in dark clothes and prepare. I felt ridiculous, like a character in a spy novel, but my curiosity had evolved into something stronger, something closer to compulsion. At 3:17 a.m. exactly, I heard his door open and close. I waited by my own door. I pressed to the peephole, watching as his tall figure moved past. Once he reached the stairwell, I quietly opened my door and followed. The building was eerily silent at this hour. The emergency lights cast long shadows in the hallway, and my own footsteps sounded thunderous to my ears, though I was walking as softly as possible. I reached the stairwell door just as it was swinging closed and caught it, wincing at the slight creak it made. I listened for his footsteps going down the stairs but heard nothing. Complete silence. Had he stopped? Was he waiting, aware that he was being followed? I held my breath, straining to hear any sound. After what felt like minutes but was probably only seconds, I heard a door close somewhere below. He was continuing downward. I exhaled and began to descend, keeping close to the wall where the stairs were less likely to creak. 4 flights down, past the lobby, into the basement level. I'd never been to the basement before. There was nothing down there for tenants except storage units and the building's mechanical systems. The door at the bottom of the stairwell had a sign reading "Authorized Personnel Only," but it was slightly ajar. Mr. Reed had gone through. I hesitated. Following a stranger in the middle of the night was already crossing a line. Trespassing into restricted areas of the building was another level entirely. But I'd come this far, and the need to know where he went every night at exactly the same time had become overwhelming. I pushed the door open slowly, cringing at the low groan of its hinges. The basement was dimly lit by sparse fluorescent tubes, many of them flickering. The air was noticeably cooler and carried the musty scent of an old building's foundations, concrete dust, mildew, and something else I couldn't identify. Something vaguely metallic. Pipes ran along the ceiling, occasionally dripping condensation onto the floor. Rows of chain-link storage cages lined one wall, each padlocked and filled with tenants' discarded belongings. The mechanical room housing the building's boiler and electrical panels was at the far end, its door closed, but Mr. Reed was nowhere to be seen. I stood still, listening. The basement hummed with the ambient sounds of the building systems, the rumble of the boiler, the electric buzz of the flickering lights, but no footsteps, no sign of which way he might have gone. As I was about to give up and return to my apartment, I noticed something on the floor, dark spots leading toward a section of wall between two storage cages. Water droplets. I remembered what Mrs. Chen had said about seeing Mr. Reed dripping wet in the hallway. I followed the trail to what appeared to be a solid concrete wall. The droplets stopped there, as if whoever left them had walked straight through the wall itself. I ran my hands over the surface, looking for any sign of a hidden door or passage, feeling increasingly foolish. The concrete was cold and rough under my fingers until it wasn't. In one section, about the size of a door, the texture changed. It looked like concrete but felt different, smoother, almost like plastic. I pressed against it, and to my shock it gave slightly, a false wall. I pushed harder and a section swung inward on silent hinges, revealing a dark passage beyond. Every instinct told me to turn around, to go back to my apartment and forget what I'd found. But that same compulsion that had driven me to follow Mr. Reed now pulled me forward into the darkness. I used my phone's flashlight to illuminate the passage. It was narrow, with walls of old brick slick with moisture, and it sloped gently downward. The air grew colder as I advanced, carrying a stronger version of that metallic smell I'd noticed in the basement. After about 30 feet, the passage opened into a larger space. My phone's light couldn't penetrate the full extent of it, but I could tell I was in some kind of chamber. The floor beneath me had changed from concrete to metal grating, and I could hear water flowing underneath. I swept my light around, trying to make sense of my surroundings. The chamber appeared circular, with the same brick walls as the passage, but older, the mortar crumbling in places. The ceiling arched overhead, disappearing into darkness beyond the reach of my light, and then my beam caught something that made my blood run cold. In the center of the chamber, a large circular opening in the floor, maybe 6 feet in diameter. A pool of black water, perfectly still despite the sounds of flowing water I could hear beneath the grating. Around the edge of this pool, strange symbols had been etched into the metal floor, intricate patterns that seemed to writhe and shift when I didn't look directly at them. I approached slowly, drawn by a horrible fascination. The surface of the water was like black glass, reflecting nothing, not even the beam of my flashlight. It seemed to absorb the light entirely. A sound behind me, footsteps on the metal grating. I spun around, my light catching the tall figure of Mr. Reed standing at the entrance to the chamber. In the harsh beam of my flashlight, I could finally see him clearly. He was indeed tall and thin, dressed in a dark coat that hung from his frame as if perpetually wet. His face was gaunt, with hollow cheeks and pale skin that had an almost greenish tint. But it was his eyes that held me frozen in place, black, not just the irises but the entire eye, and utterly without expression. "You shouldn't be here, Emily," he said, his voice surprisingly normal, almost pleasant. "Mrs. Winters warned you about respecting privacy." I backed away, moving around the edge of the black pool. "What is this place? What are you doing down here?" Mr. Reed smiled, revealing teeth that seemed too numerous, too sharp. "This place was here long before the building, before the city. The architects who designed Blackwood Apartments built around it, sealed it off, but some of us remember, some of us still serve." He took a step toward me. I took another step back, feeling the edge of the pool behind my heels. "Serve what?" I asked, trying to keep him talking while I looked for a way out. "The deep ones," he said, as if it were obvious. "They sleep beneath in the dark waters that run under the city. Once they were worshipped, now they are forgotten by most, but they still hunger, they still need tribute." My mind raced with confusion and fear. This man was clearly delusional, dangerous. I needed to get past him, back to the passage, back to the safety of the building above. "Every night," he continued, taking another step toward me. "At the hour when the veil between worlds is thinnest, the offering must be made." "What offering?" I asked, though I feared I already knew the answer. Mr. Reed's smile widened, inhumanly wide. "Blood, flesh, life. The deep ones must feed." I lunged to the side, trying to circle around him toward the exit, but he moved with impossible speed, blocking my path. Up close, I could smell the same metallic scent that permeated the chamber, stronger now. "The smell of blood. Where do you go?" I asked desperately. "After you leave here at 3:17, where do you go for those 43 minutes? His head tilted at an unnatural angle. "I hunt, in the streets, in the alleys. The forgotten ones, the unseen ones. No one misses them. No one notices when they're gone." Horror washed over me as the implications became clear. The precise timing, the wet clothes Mrs. Chen had seen, his absence during daylight hours. For how long had this been happening? How many people had disappeared to feed whatever lay beneath the black water? "Tonight is different, though," Mr. Reed said, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Tonight the tribute came to me." He lunged forward with inhuman speed. I screamed and stumbled backward, forgetting in my panic how close I was to the edge of the pool. My heels slipped off the metal grating and I felt myself falling. The black water closed over me like 1,000 cold hands pulling me down. It wasn't water, it was too thick, too cold, seeming to fill my lungs instantly despite my closed mouth. I couldn't see, couldn't breathe, couldn't think through the overwhelming cold and pressure. And then in the absolute darkness, I sensed something else in the water with me, something vast and ancient, something with awareness. I felt it turn its attention toward me, felt its hunger, its alien intelligence assessing my worth as sacrifice. Images flooded my mind, a city of impossible architecture beneath the waves, beings that defied description moving through flooded streets, rituals performed in chambers like the one above but on a massive scale. Centuries of worship, of sacrifice, of pacts made between those above and those below. I understood then that Mr. Reed was not human, had not been human for a very long time. He was a servant, a priest of sorts, maintaining an ancient tradition in secret beneath an unsuspecting modern world. Just as I felt consciousness slipping away, just as I felt something massive moving toward me through the black liquid, I was suddenly pulled upward. My head broke the surface and I gasped, coughing and retching as the thick fluid burned in my lungs. Mr. Reed stood above me, his impossible strength having yanked me from the pool with one hand. His expression was no longer threatening but curious, his head tilted as he studied me. "You saw," he said, "it wasn't a question. You saw them." I couldn't speak, could only cough and shudder as the cold black liquid dripped from my clothes, my hair, my skin. Where it touched the metal grating, it seemed to move with purpose, flowing back toward the pool. "They have marked you," Mr. Reed continued. "I can see it in your eyes, they have chosen you." "For what?" I finally managed to gasp. "To serve." As I serve, he released my arm and I collapsed onto the grating. "Go back to your apartment, Emily, rest. Tomorrow night at 3:17 you will return here, you will make your first offering." "No," I whispered, "I won't. I'll go to the police, I'll tell them everything." Mr. Reed's laugh was like stones grinding together. "Will you? And what will you tell them? That your neighbor is a servant of ancient underwater gods. That there's a secret chamber beneath your apartment building where sacrifices are made. That you fell into a pool of living darkness and it spoke to you." He was right. I would sound insane. No one would believe me. "Besides," he continued, "do you really think you're the first to discover this place, to threaten exposure? Why do you think Mrs. Winters warned you to respect my privacy? She knows. The building's owners know. They have always known." My mind reeled with the implications. How many people in the building were aware? How many were complicit in the horrors that took place beneath their feet every night? "The mark is upon you now," Mr. Reed said, his voice softer. "You belong to them. You will feel it tomorrow, the hunger, the pull. At precisely 3:17, you will find yourself drawn here, no matter how you fight it. And you will bring an offering." He turned and walked toward the passage, his movement once again that unnatural glide I had glimpsed in the hallway. At the entrance, he paused and looked back. "Welcome to the congregation, Emily. You'll find service has its rewards. The deep ones grant long life to their faithful. I have served for 117 years. His black eyes gleamed in the darkness. "I look forward to showing you the ways of worship." Then he was gone, leaving me trembling on the metal grating beside the pool of black water. I don't know how long I remained there, but eventually I found the strength to stand. My clothes were completely dry, though they should have been soaked with whatever fluid filled the pool. My skin felt strange, tighter, slightly numb, as if I'd been burned and was now healing. I made my way back through the passage, through the basement, up the stairs to the 4th floor. The building was still silent, still sleeping, unaware of the ancient horror that dwelled beneath it. In my apartment, I stripped off my clothes and examined myself in the bathroom mirror. My skin looked normal, if perhaps a bit paler than usual. But my eyes, the irises had darkened, the warm brown now shot through with threads of black that seemed to move when I wasn't looking directly at them. I told myself it was a trick of the light, of my exhausted, traumatized mind. I told myself I would pack a bag in the morning, leave this place, report everything to the authorities. I told myself I was still in control. But as I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I felt something new inside me. A hunger, a yearning for the depths I had glimpsed in that moment of submersion. Images of the underwater city flickered behind my eyelids when I tried to sleep. And somewhere deep in my mind I could feel their presence, their awareness of me, their pleasure at having found a new servant. It's 2:45 a.m. now as I write this. I've packed a bag, my car keys are in my pocket. I've written down everything that happened, everything I discovered in case I don't leave, in case I can't leave, because I can feel it building inside me, the compulsion, the need. My skin feels too tight, too dry. My thoughts keep turning to the black water, to the chamber below, to the ancient beings that wait in the darkness. It's 3:04 a.m., 13 minutes until 3:17. I should go now while I still can. I should run from this building and never look back, but my feet won't move toward the door. Instead, they want to take me to the hallway, to the stairwell, down to the basement. My hands shake as I type these last words. I can hear movement in the apartment next door. Mr. Reed is preparing for his nightly ritual. Soon, his door will open. He will walk past my apartment toward the stairwell. And I know with growing certainty and horror that tonight I will follow him not as an observer, but as a fellow servant. I can feel their call in my blood, their hunger becoming my hunger. It's 3:12 a.m., 5 minutes remaining. I'm going to post this online, this record of my last moments of clarity. Perhaps someone will read it and understand. Perhaps someone will investigate Blackwood Apartments, will find the chamber beneath, will end the centuries of sacrifice. Or perhaps new tenants will continue to move in, continue to notice their strange neighbor in 4B, continue to be warned about respecting privacy. It's 3:16 a.m. I hear his door opening. God help me, I'm opening mine too.